two children who followed him in his footsteps. Followed him in his footsteps? What am I saying? I'm just going to do the whole bit again. I was rambling like fuck. Conas, how are ye? Welcome back to the Candlelit Tales YouTube channel. Today we are going to have a look at another one of the Irish gods. This one is the god of healing, and his name is Dian Cecht. He was a little bit like the god Apollo. He combined healing with this idea of swiftness and always turning up where he was needed. And he had a little bit of a dark side. Dian Cecht is often considered to be one of the Tuatha Dé Danann, although he may predate the Tuatha Dé Danann. And if you want to find out more about them and what we know about them and what we really don't know about them, you can check out this video here. So like I said, there's a little bit of uncertainty about Dian Cecht. There's a little bit of uncertainty about all of the Irish gods because there's so much disruption in the way that these stories have been passed down. But I'm not going to get into that every single time. I just want to say it at the start of the video in case this is your first video that you're right, or vice versa. We could just both be reading from different sources, and there are many sources, and there is no one true, pure source that has never been changed by anybody. So it's a little bit of an invitation to humility for all of us, I think. And also I think it's a great opportunity to share what people do know. So if you know different about Dian Cecht, definitely let me know in the comments. I would love to know. So Dian Cecht is linked to several other gods. He has a pretty well-established sort of family tree for an Irish god. His father, the Dagda, is at one time the king of the gods. And he also has a son called Cian, who is the father of Lugh Fada, who probably deserves his own video at some point. He was this youthful god of all talents. And he also had two children who followed in his footsteps and also became great healers. They were called Aramid and Miach, and we will talk about them a little bit more. This is one of those gods that is like documented by Julius Caesar as like, you know, the Celts had their own version of Apollo, and he was known as Dian Cecht, and he was also known as Cancha. He was considered to be a wanderer and a swift traveller. So there was this idea that he would turn up at the bedside where he was like needed the most, and that he travelled during times of peace. He went where he was needed. There are stories of him defeating serpents, and in Irish mythology, serpents are usually linked to the ideas of disease and plague. There is this idea with St. Patrick and the serpents that the serpents represent paganism, but that's probably not true. It's probably actually linking back to this older idea that links serpents and plagues. So Dian Cecht was also a defeater of serpents in that way. He was the one who diagnosed the Morrigan's child, Mechy, with having 3 serpents in his heart, which we don't really have to worry about so much these days, but they were a big concern for our ancestors. Having worms was not fun. Illnesses were thought to start in the body or the mind or the heart, which does kind of suggest that there was some knowledge of like psychiatry and therapy, or at least those things that we would today consider to be part of psychiatry or therapy, that like there's a mind-body connection and that, you know, we are sort of holistic beings. Dian Cecht was a bit of a jack of all trades in that he was able to deal with all of these. He boasted once that he was able to cure any disease, any wound, any illness, except for something that pierced the membrane of the brain or the spinal column, which is pretty good. Like, there's a lot of doctors these days couldn't say that. So Dian Cecht really came into his own during like times of war and battle. He was there at the first battle of Moytura, which was between the Tuatha Dé Danann and the Firbolg, they were descended from the same people, but they came to Ireland at different times. So they ended up fighting, and he constructed healing wells. So he was one of the incredibly important figures in this fight because he made these healing wells. He filled them up with every herb in Ireland, and he tended them, possibly with the help of Aramid and Miach. Just was able to dunk wounded soldiers in there and get them back on their feet. So at the end of every evening, they gathered up all of the wounded, bathed them in these healing pools, and they were restored to full health by the morning. Which, if you're trying to fight a war, must be terrible. Because you keep seeing people that you've already killed or wounded or maimed, and they're just getting up and walking back into the fight. Miach particularly, his son Miach, showed signs of being like a truly extraordinary healer, but Miak had a little bit of an odd twist to the way he went about things. There is a story of one of the king's watchmen losing an eye, and Miak offered to restore his eye and gave him a cat's eye instead of his own, which technically worked but had some side effects because it was a cat's eye, so it behaved like a cat. And so all day while he was supposed to be on watch, the cat's eye got bored and went to sleep. And all night while he was trying to sleep, the cat's eye was awake looking for mice and trying to wake him up. Yeah, Miak had this sort of capricious little gift with healing as well. Dian Cecht seems to have been a sterner character. And as I said, he had a little bit of a dark side. So the first battle of Moytura was a really, really important one in the mythological cycle. And you can go and listen to all of the stories of the battles of Moytura on our podcast. We have retold them many times, some of them. And one of the things that happened in that battle is that the then king of the Tuatha Dé Danann, Nuda, had his arm severed at the shoulder. Now this was a disaster, because this meant that the Tuatha Dé Danann lost their king. See, in ancient Irish society, by law, no king could rule if he were in any way physically afflicted. No deformity, no blemish, nothing wrong with the king. The king had to be perfect. So not having an arm immediately disqualified Nuda from kingship. Now Dian Cecht did his best to restore Nuda, and one of his greatest feats of healing was that he constructed a prosthetic arm for Nuda. He made it out of silver, and it was able to articulate in a way that, like, I think we're now seeing with like 3D printed limbs, but it was obviously a magical articulation. It was able to move, it was able to grip, it was an absolute wonder of a thing, but it wasn't enough. Nuda still didn't have both arms, and therefore, even though he had this wonderful prosthetic, he could not be king. That proved to be a disaster for the Tuatha Dé Danann, because the king they elected after Nuda was a character called Bress, and Bress was beautiful and useless. He was a terrible king. He completely messed it up. He allowed all of his Fomorian buddies to come in and impose taxes on the people. He was lazy, he was mean, he mocked people. He bears no resemblance to any political figures today, thank goodness, because he was actually good looking. Now this is where we get to Dian Cecht's dark side, and it is pretty dark, because his son, Miak, remember him, the guy with the cat eye? He decided that he could do better than his father. He went behind Dian Cecht's back, and he went to Nuda, and he managed to reattach Nuada's severed arm. How he'd found the arm, I'm not entirely sure, because in another story, the Hawk of Achill, which was like this giant mythological hawk that lived on Achill Island, boasted about stealing Nuada's arm from the battlefield and taking it to feed his children. But whatever bits of dried out bone Miak was able to find, he was actually able, over like 9 days and 9 nights of chanting and healing and ritual and herbs and smoke and whatever else he did, and obviously magic, Miak was able to reattach the arm and make Nuada whole again. And so with Nuada whole again, he was able to be king again, and the Tuatha Dé Danann had their king back, just in time for preparations for a war, which is all the mythological cycle. It's on the podcast. Unfortunately, far from being proud of his son or excited at the wonderful, incredible, unprecedented feat of healing that he had done, Dian Cecht was furious. He was incredibly jealous, he was incredibly angry, and he repeatedly attacked Miak. He struck him in the head 3 separate times, but each time Miak was able to heal himself. The final blow pierced the brain. So once he cut the membrane of the brain, it became an uncurable wound, and even Miak with his great skill could do nothing about it. So Dian Cecht killed his own son. And I think the fact that there were like 3 attempts before the killing show that like this was not a sort of moment of frenzy or passion. This was very deliberate. He did not like being outdone by his son, and so he murdered his son very, very purposefully, which really comes through in the second half of that story, because Miak, being such a wonderful healer, after he was buried, his sister Armid buried him, all of the healing herbs in the world started to grow out of his body, and they started to grow out of the areas that they could heal. So herbs to heal the lungs were growing out over where his lungs were buried, herbs for the eyes, healing, coming out in that area. The ancient Irish did not have a writing system properly. They had ogham, but it was for marking signposts and grave markers. So Aramid wasn't writing down and cataloguing where these herbs grew. Instead, what she did was she gathered them. She laid out her cloak, she gathered the herbs, and she placed them on the cloak in the same places that they'd come off the grave. And again, very deliberately, very purposefully, Dian Cecht waited until she was finished and then picked up her cloak and scattered all the herbs, which doesn't say very nice things about him as a person, but also is kind of the origin story for this idea in Irish culture, Celtic culture. A lot of cultures around the world honestly have this idea that like there is a cure for everything in nature, that there are plants that have healing powers, and we just don't know which ones go with which thing. Because if Dian Cecht hadn't done that, we apparently would. But because he did that, we're still figuring it out. And we're still having to figure it out little by little, over the years, all the way. Now, unlike some of the other gods, Dian Cecht is not really associated strongly with any one particular place. He was such a traveller. He travelled everywhere. He went from place to place. His work took him everywhere. He has various symbols associated with him. Some people talk about like a staff and a like sort of proto-caduceus style staff. I honestly am a little bit skeptical about that. I don't know how true that is, and I don't know where that comes from because I haven't seen it in a story. It would make sense for him to have a walking staff. He is remembered in the name of a folk cure, which is a kind of a cure-all. It's called Dian Cecht's porridge, and it was supposed to cure phlegm and colds and sore throat and also worms. And it consisted of hazelnuts, dandelion, wood sorrel, chickweed and oats. I cannot say how effective it is or how good it tastes because I am allergic to oats, which is a weird allergy, but there you go. Don't know why that is. I have tried dandelions and they are very, very bitter, so I feel like that would dominate the flavour. It would probably taste like it was good for you. But if anyone's interested in trying that out, I would be extremely excited to hear what it tastes like and if it works. So let us know in the comments. Had you heard of Dian Cecht before this? Were you familiar with him? What do you think of him? Do you think he's a good god or a bad god? Are we doing that? I don't know. Maybe we're not. I think he's an interesting character and he's very complex. But let us know also what other aspects of Irish mythology and folklore would you like us to do one of these videos about. If you would like to support us, you can do all of the usual YouTube things. You can like and comment and subscribe. If you would like to get some of this information in written down format, we have a book. It is called Celtic Mythology. It is by Aaron Hegarty and Sorcha Hegarty, except actually my name is first. So you can find that at your local bookstore, I hope. Otherwise, let us know and we'll tell you where to get it. There'll be links. We'll put links. If you would like to give us direct support, you can head on over and join the Candlelit crew. And if you would like to know more about how do we tell these stories, you can check our website and maybe come along on one of our courses. We do a lot over here at Candlelit Tales. We hope you'll be back. All right, I'm done. It's the middle of the fucking night. I'm going to bed. You.